Welcome back to Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Alaina Pinto, and this is the B block or second section of our news show. There's an ugly trend in new cannabis legal states who are charged with offering opportunities to those most impacted by the failed war on drugs. These social equity applicants get a chance to jump the line for licensure. But not having any capital to launch a business has caused many of these applicants to become targets of investors who see a way to take advantage of their lack of business acumen. One of those companies is fighting back through the courts. Here's Mark Allen from Illinois with that story and more.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mark Allen, the Chicago clone guy, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News, just outside of Chicago, Illinois. This is Bird. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about Cannabis Development Company, also known as CanBevCo. They're actually suing their former social equity partner for reneging on a deal. They allege that Mr. McCade Jr. used them to help get a commercial craft grow license, only to pretty much dump them at the end of it when he received the license. So the big company is now going to sue the little guy. On other side news, I'm actually friends with a hemp farmer social equity applicant that was going to be the social equity applicant for another large commercial grow facility, but decided not to because they were only going to give him a tiny percentage, and then he wasn't going to have any type of say in the business operations at all. So they ended up picking another social equity licensed person, but after they got up and going, they ditched that gentleman. So the guy that was going to be that social equity license, he ended up getting, well, kind of screwed out of his license. So it seems like it's going both ways in here in Illinois. Definitely very interesting. Some positive news going on in Illinois. Since it's warming up, there's actually events, consumption events that are starting to form and be organized. The next one that I found out about is actually going to be in Elgin, Illinois on April 22nd. It is called the Boats and Hash competition, hosted by the IRC, Illinois Rosin Collective. This is going to be in Elgin, Illinois. It's going to be focusing on vendors. It's going to have artists. There's going to be DJs. There's also going to be guest speakers focusing on mycology, which is very interesting to me. And they're going to be focusing more on hash conversations. So if you're around for that, check it out. It's in Elgin, Illinois at the end of April. You can find it on Instagram or Facebook. But that sums up this portion of the news for the Illinois Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Mark Allen, the Chicago clone guy. Checking out.
Next up, a disturbing story about the trickle-down impact of the new administration's crackdown on illegals in this country. A Milwaukee resident named Ma Yang has been deported to Laos over a cannabis trafficking conviction from 2020. She had spent some time behind bars for her cannabis crime, and that's when her green card was revoked. When she checked in for scheduled appointment with the ICE in February, she was detained and on March 6th was deported back to Laos, where she was born in 1988, but was raised in the U.S. after her parents emigrated to this country. Now she says the U.S. has sent her back to die. There is a GoFundMe page to help Ma Yang get back to the United States, and you can find it on the screen or search Ma Yang GoFundMe. Yang has 5 children, ages 5 to 22, and just became a grandmother. These stories continue to pile up as this new policy continues to upend families who have American citizenship but ties to foreign nations. Next up, let's check in with Tina Tasaka in Nevada and with the tribal nations there.
I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies, and this is the Nevada and Tribal Nations Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. In the Reno Gazette-Journal, the Nevada Clean Air Act is under attack. The journal reports that the Nevada Clean Indoor Air Act, NCIAA, faces a challenge from Assembly Bill 76, which seeks to allow indoor smoking in cannabis consumption lounges. This contradicts the NCIAA's goal of protecting the public from secondhand smoke. Health experts warn that cannabis smoke contains harmful toxins similar to tobacco. Opponents argue Nevada should strengthen, not weaken, smoke-free laws and urge residents to oppose AB 76. The Oneida Indian Nation in New York has expanded their recreational marijuana business earlier in 2025. Verana Collective now has 2 dispensaries open in Sherrill and Chittenango. These join 2 existing shops in Verana, bringing high quality, locally grown cannabis products closer to Syracuse. The Oneidas plan further expansion later this year. Unlike state regulated dispensaries, their business operates under tribal oversight but follows similar quality standards. Taxes collected go toward tribal government operations. The expansion reflects strong demand and positive customer response to their competitive pricing and product variety. Congratulations to this tribe. That's it for the Nevada highlights and tribal nations. I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies and Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Idaho is a state with one of the most strict cannabis laws in the country. It's an automatic $300 fine now if you are caught possessing even a small amount of cannabis. Plus, the state legislature there continues to try to pass a law that would eliminate the right of its citizens to change laws based on a ballot question. Needless to say, there are plenty of people in that state and all around the country who see how that state is trying to get around democracy. This week, that same legislature held hearings on why a medical program is necessary, and they used the story of a decorated veteran to make its point. U.S. Air Force veteran Jeremy Kitsaber testified before the state legislature to explain to those lawmakers that he carries with him prescribed drugs like hydrocodone, morphine, and oxycodone. Pretty much an opioid overdose waiting to happen. He wants to get off those prescribed medications and use cannabis to combat his PTSD and chronic pain. However, there is no legal medical program in that state, and Kitsaber is frustrated with the system of the country he represented and served for years. Now let's check in with Joe Parsons in Virginia.
I'm Joe Parsons with the Virginia Cannabis Connection by Higher Education's Coffee Talk, sponsored by 97.5 3WV in Charlottesville. Today on Coffee Talk, I had a very special guest, one you might recognize, Scott McStacy. He was that gentleman that was building a house out of hemp. So, Scott, thank you so much for being here today. Now, word on the street is that you have a new mobile education center. So please tell us about that.
Yes, thank you, Joe. So we have opened the Hemptastic Ideas Mobile Hemp School. And this is a school that I can pull in a trailer and come to you and teach all about cannabis and hemp. We focus on everything from the ancient history of cannabis all the way up to the modern commercial applications. And we actually have got some events already scheduled for May and June. We're doing some hempcrete workshops. So it's good. It's coming along.
Awesome. And if someone wants to get involved in this, where do they go?
Well, you can go to my Facebook page. It's Seed to Structure, SEEDTOSTRUCTURE. It's Seed to Structure. And on that site, I will have all the announcements for all of our events.
And pricing and so forth?
Everything. Yes.
Outstanding. Well, Scott, thank you so much. And also, as a little reminder, I am going to be going out to that same house that Scott was working on. Look forward to giving everyone a full update on that. And anything else that you would like to announce, Scott?
Well, just say everybody have a hempy day.
That sounds awesome. All right, well, that is going to do it for this week from the Virginia Cannabis Connection and Higher Education's Coffee Talk, sponsored by 97.5 3WV in Charlottesville and reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Joe Parsons. As always, stay lifted.
Bloomberg Intelligence released findings of a study they researched on cannabis use among young adults. Keep in mind that their definition of young adults was 18 to 24 years old. Since they were researching a product that is supposed to be used by adults over the age of 21, the results are already suspect. However, it shows that more people, whether they are considered young or not, are using cannabis daily than drinking alcohol. With the exception of the hot hemp marketplace of products made from Delta 8 THC. It shows how easy access to these products have hurt the alcohol industry. It also should explain why many alcohol companies like Canopy Growth and others are investing in THC infused beverages, because if you can't beat them, why not join them? Besides, the federal government opened this Pandora's box for the launch of the hemp industry when it passed the Farm Bill of 2018, basically legalizing the cannabis sativa plant. Alcohol companies aren't the only businesses who are entering the space. Both MSOs Trulieve and Curaleaf have launched hemp-based THC beverages. Even though this was a self-reported study by Bloomberg, it showed 74% of young adults in that 18 to 24 category reported using cannabis instead of alcohol in the past week. At age 25 to 34, that number goes down to 65%. And then from 45 to 54 age group, that substitution goes down to 42%. For the 55 and older set, that figure goes all the way down to 18%. Now let's check in with Andrew Behringer in Washington, D.C.
I'm Andrew Behringer with the Washington, D.C. report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Recently, the CDC has unveiled a new comprehensive cannabis strategic plan amid shifting landscape in a significant development that reflects the nation's evolving relationship with cannabis. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has quietly released its first ever cannabis strategic plan. This comes as states continue to implement varying degrees of legalization, while questions persist about the plan's long-term health impacts. The CDC officials cite two primary motivations behind the plan: the dramatic increase in the THC potency in modern cannabis products and the steadily growing number of Americans using cannabis in various forms. The comprehensive strategy rests on 5 core pillars: monitoring usage trends, advancing scientific research, building capacity within states and local authorities, supplementing healthcare systems, and partnering with schools and community organizations. Now, this plan outlines specific initiatives, including reviewing medical cannabis benefits, developing educational materials, and expanding data collection to be better understood and used out in the industry. Noticeably, the CDC has identified several demographic groups of particular concern, including workers who are pregnant and women, and adolescents, while focusing investigations on issues ranging from substance use disorder to workplace safety and driving impairment. Perhaps most significant is what many policy advocates are calling a marked shift in federal positioning. While safety concerns dominate the documents, the CDC explicitly acknowledges potential therapeutic benefits of cannabis, a dramatic departure from the decades of federal resistance to recognize any medical value from the plant. This acknowledgement aligns with recent federal rescheduling discussions that have been indicated potentially medical applications for cannabis. Well, that's the Washington, D.C. report. I'm Andrew Behringer, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Our European report with Ben Stevens will return next week, but Debi Facey is here with her weekly look at the Canadian cannabis market.
This is Debi Facey with the Canadian Coast to Coast Cannabis News Report. So, in Vancouver, using something called the mechanical lung, they are looking at what company is creating and producing the best pre-rolls. And that is by utilizing this machine as if it was an actual sucking person motion, and they are seeing how well the spliffs burn, and that also what kind of ash does it produce. We should all know that the white ash is good ash. Next, what we have is the tariffs that are affecting most of our Canadian companies, containers, and packaging, due to the fact that most Canadians did use manufacturers within the States. That is now implementing the cost on the packaging as well as the bud. So we are hoping to find some sort of solution when it comes to that, so our cannabis in Canada does not become too expensive. And last but not least, we have Aurora that has found a powdery mildew, by the name of PM2, which is something that is affecting the grows. They are hoping to be able to attack this so they don't have to use more pesticides and grow a lot more clean, great cannabis. This is Debi Facey with the Canadian Coast to Coast Cannabis News Report. Peace.
That'll do it for the B Block, and when we come back, we'll go back to Nikan with PCM TV founder Jimmy Young, who always seems to find interesting people with a story to tell at these trade shows. The C Block is next as Cannabis Coast to Coast News continues after this.
And Corvain, I got to tell you, when I heard the first story, when I asked Anthony, I go, so why did you name it 40 Tons? You want to walk me through that a little bit? So, hold the microphone. I know, you want to hold the mic, you can hold your own mic, but let me hold this one. Is that all right?
It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. You know, I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weegits filtration system. What? The Weegits.com, Weegits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. The guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. Now, add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weegits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind.